Hello guys, welcome to your next set of notes. Today we're going to be talking about rates and unit rates. So if you can take your paper and if you can cut it out, glue it onto the next page right after ratios and equivalent ratios. Notice I cut off the title, so I wrote it in. You can do that, or you can keep it and just glue it. It is your choice, but make sure to cut and glue it. So pause the video and then restart it when you are ready to get moving on with this. So rates and unit rates go along with ratios because a rate is a ratio. A rate is a very specific type of ratio that compares two quantities with different measures, meaning dollars and anything else, miles and hours, students, classes, chairs, rows, students, buses, horses, stables. So all of these are examples of rates because they are all different types of measures. They're different unit labels. But a unit rate, which is what we're going to be working on, is when a ratio has a second term of 1. So right now, all of our rates don't have a second unit of 1. So $6 for 8 erasers. I want that second unit to be 1. That second number to be a 1, not an 8, not a 5, so forth and so on down the list. So in order to calculate it, meaning to find it, to solve it, to calculate your unit rate, you must divide the numerator of a given ratio by the denominator. Because remember, we can write ratios as fractions. So if I have this ratio right here, $6 for 8 erasers, my $6 is going on top, and my 8 erasers are going on bottom. Okay, so that's how that is going to work. Here's a hint, when dealing with money, the money will always be the numerator. So even if I said 8 erasers for $6, it is still 6 over 8. Always, always, always. But everything else, you read it from left to right, you write it from top to bottom. So over here, I would have 300 miles in 5 hours. The 300 miles goes on top. The 5 hours goes on bottom. Same with the next one, 98 students in 4 classes. 98 students goes on top. 4 classes go on bottom. And it's always going to be in that exact same manner. So once you've written it as a ratio in fraction form, you can then start by solving by dividing the numerator divided by the denominator, which means the numerator is the number that goes in the house. So this would tell me 6 divided by 8. Now remember, you are not allowed to use a calculator. You are allowed to use a calculator to check your work, but I need to see your work on the piece of paper. So I'm going to do this one with you. I'm going to do a couple with you, just to remind you how to divide, especially if we have to divide with decimals, especially if it's not an easy number. So 8 goes into 6 0 times. So we put a 0 up top, and we add a decimal, because there's a decimal right after that 6. I then add a 0, and I say, well, 8 goes into 60 7 times, because 7 times 8 is 56. I'm going to take 60 minus 56, and I will get 4. I'm going to zoom this in a little. There we go. And then same thing, I add a 0. I keep going. I have to get at least 3 decimal places, so I can always round to the nearest hundredth. So that's kind of your rule. Round to nearest hundredth. When we're talking with unit rates, always go to that hundredth spot, especially with money, because that's what the money is in. So then I ask myself, well, 8 goes into 40 5 times, because 8 times 5 is 40, and 40 minus 40 ends up being 0. So I get 0.75. unit rate off to the side means I need to write it as a unit rate, and there is a very specific unit rate to do. Okay, when the whatever number goes on top and goes inside the house, that is your number or the label that goes with this. So this means 75 cents. So I would write 75 cents with that dollar sign. If you want to put a cent sign, you can put a cent sign. That is fine. But then I would write per eraser. I have to have that entire thing. If I do not have that entire thing, I am not correct. I am wrong. I will lose points because of my label is not right. But I didn't even have to round there because it ended perfectly. If it didn't end perfectly, I would go one more spot and then I would round. So let's do the next one. The next one's 300 divided by 5, which should be pretty simple. We know 5 can't go into 3. 5 can go into 36 times. And then I just have to remember that I need to bring that 0 up. Because 5 times 6 is 30, and I want 300, so 5 times 60 is 300. So I get 60 as my answer, and I just have to remember that I need both labels. I need miles and hours. This line right here, this means per. This means per. This line means per. It's 300 miles per 5 hours. But now I have 60 miles, and this is where they get the phrase MPH, miles per hour, which you are okay to write because that is a perfectly good label. If I do not know the label, I cannot abbreviate. Do not abbreviate if you do not know the proper abbreviation for it. You will get it wrong. So then I have this next one. I have 98 students per 4 class periods. So I put 98 in the house. I'm dividing it by 4. 4 goes into 9 2 times. We get 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. Bring down the 18. 4 goes into 18 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. 18 minus 16 is 2. I'm not done, so I need to add a decimal and add a 0. Bring it down, and I now have 20. 4 goes into 20 5 times, and that's 20 minus 20 is 0. Now notice I didn't get to the 100 spot. That is okay. That is my answer. I can stop, and I do not have to round. So in the unit rate, I would write 24 and a half, 24.5, and it's 24 and a half students. Now we could write the word per, or you can use the slash sign, which also means per class. Now I know that when we're talking about students, you can't have half of a student. That is not possible. But I still want you to write it properly, even though we should all know that we would technically need to round that to 25 students per class. But I still want you to write it using that decimal, even though it is not physically possible to have half of a student. Just know that it's technically 25 students per class. So what I want you guys to do for the rest of your homework is there are 3 more problems. We have 96 chairs in 12 rows, 336 students on 8 buses, 72 horses in 12 stables. I want you to do your work exactly like we've done up above, answer them off to the side, and we will check them in class tomorrow. I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening, and I look forward to talking to you then. Bye-bye.